नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरों चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायामुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवते उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। So today we will read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 1. The chapter is entitled, The Supreme Lord is Equal to Everyone. So this is a beginning of Narshimha Leela. Practically the whole 7th canto is dedicated for the description of this pastimes. So this is a discussion between Narad Muni and Yudhishthira Maharaj, and this discussion is being narrated by Parikshit Maharaj to by Sukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. So this shlok is 4th and 5th. So Rushirvacha Sadhu Prushtam Maharaja Harishcharitam Adbhutam Yat Bhagavat Mahatmyam Bhagavad Bhakti Vardhanam. So translation is like this. The great sage Sukadeva Goswami said, My dear king, you have put before me an excellent question. Discourses concerning the activities of the Lord, in which the glories of his devotees are also found, are extremely pleasing to the devotees. Such wonderful topics always counteract miseries of material way of life. Therefore, great sage like Narad always speak upon Srimad Bhagavatam, because it gives one facility to hear and chant about the wonderful activities of the Lord. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Shri Vasudev and then begin describing topics concerning the activities of Lord Hari. The purport given by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, Sukadeva Goswami offers his respectful obeisances to Krishnaya Munihi, means Krishna Dvapayan Vyasa. One must first observe one's respectful obeisances to one's spiritual master. Sukadeva Goswami's spiritual master is his father, Vasudev, and therefore first he offers his obeisances to Krishna Dvapayan Vyasa and then begins describing the topics of Lord Hari. Wherever there is an opportunity to hear about the transcendental activities of the Lord, we must take it. Srila Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends Kirtaniya Sadahari. One should always engage in Hari Katha by chanting and talking about Krishna and hearing about him. That is the only occupation of a Krishna conscious person. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Unmilitam Vena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Mena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yotapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरि वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So we see in Krishna conscious life there are festivals after festivals. Just recently all of you must have celebrated Ram Navami. In Govardhanika village also, like so many surrounding villages, we had wonderful series of lectures about Ram Navami. And then as we complete those discussions, Chaturdashi is coming. So this whole 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is describing about the Prahlad Maharaja's activities, and then consequently his father Hiranyakashipu's things also will be discussed. So how does this whole canto begins is Hiranyakashipu's mother is Diti, and when her son Hiranyakashipu he dies, Lord appears as a Varahadev and kills him, and then eventually he is going to kill Hiranyakashipu also with the form of Lord Narshimha. And then what happens is, why Krishna takes these different forms to kill these two particular demons? If you see the history, because it was instigated by Indradev. So then it appears that Indra instigates the Supreme Lord, and then Supreme Lord kills the demon. So then naturally a common person will conclude that the Supreme Lord is partial to the demigods and is very inimical towards the demons. So that's a natural understanding of the people, that Supreme Lord is favoring one and punishing another one. And this is the exact question that Parikshit Maharaj is asking to Sukadeva Goswami about the Lord's apparent partiality. So in the very first verse of this chapter, the Parikshit Maharaj asks, actually the Supreme Lord is equal, he is a Sama, at the same time he is very dear, he is a Priya, and he is also friend, he is called Suhrit to everyone. Because Bhagavad Gita clearly describes the Lord is the most well-wishing friend of all living entities. So we may have our relatives, we may have father, mother, brothers, sisters, and the friends. But in these lives, not necessarily all of them may remain like that. In the sense, sometimes we find the father-son relationship gets disturbed, or brother's relationship gets disturbed. But one relationship that we have with our Supreme Lord will always remain the same as eternal Father, and we are their children's. And then Supreme Lord is the person who is considered as always the well-wisher. Now sometimes, like I have seen, there is a fight between father and son, and they fight in the courts. They go all the way up to the Supreme Court over some piece of property or some wealth. So one who is supposed to be the well-wisher sometimes becomes the enemy. But it never happens in case of the Supreme Lord. No matter what a living entity does, Supreme Lord will always try to rectify him and bring him back to his own abode. And then, if the Supreme Lord is acting like this, he is favoring the demigods and is punishing the demons, and if he is stamped as partial, then what happens is, this is a very important question, because sometimes some people, they feel it's a very simple question, why Lord is behaving like this. But the point is, there has to be a proper discussion, because if you put this label on the Supreme Lord, that Supreme Lord is partial, then the character of the Supreme Lord comes under a question. Because let's see, like you have a master who is a partial, then will subordinates serve him properly? Will they serve in full faith? Because the person, subordinates will think, no matter what I do, my master is going to favor somebody. Then why should I put so much hard work? So the subordinates will lose the faith, and they cannot put their full heart in whatever service that they are doing it. And that is why the position of the Lord has to be very clear, and it's beyond the doubts. He should be always beyond any contamination, beyond any doubts. So what happens is somebody calls like, no, Lord is partial, he always favors demigods and punishes the demons. Then this is kind of a black mark on the character of the Supreme Lord. So we see like mercy of the Supreme Lord and the mercy of the devotees. Both go in one sense hand in hand. And we have to understand that if we have to properly understand the topics of Krishna, then few things are very essential. The first is, one should get the seed of devotional service. And if you see, those who are farmers, they know what is the importance of a proper seed. Because if you get a fake seed, then all your whole entire season will go waste, you will become bankrupt. So that's why the seed, the quality seed is very essential. So one has to get that quality seed from the pure devotees of the Lord. The seed of bhakti has to be taken from the pure devotees. Now once you have a seed, what you will next do? Even a common child will also understand that you have to water the plant, then only the plant will grow. So now there is a Bhakti Lata Bij. So how you will water Bhakti Lata Bij? By hearing about the Supreme Lord. By hearing about His holy name, chanting about His holy name, and hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, one can water the seed of bhakti. And then the land has to be fertile. Now how one can make the land fertile? Then you must have seen the farmers, they till the land. The land is very hard, but when you till it, it becomes soft and the crops grows very nicely. So how do a devotee does his heart fertile? So then he acts in humility and gives respects to others. So the heart which is not humble and heart which never have a gratitude and never expresses the respect for others, in that such a hard surface, if the hard land is there, the seed cannot grow. Even if you have the best seed and you water it, but the land is hard, the seed will not be able to fructify properly. So that is why we have to understand that all three things should be there. So what are the three things? Bhakti Lata Bij should come from pure devotees. Then we have to water it by hearing. And third thing is, land has to be fertile by humility and offering respect to others. And now if one component is missing, then what will happen? So suppose you have the seed that is given by the pure devotee of the Supreme Lord, then you are hearing also. But then you don't make the land fertile by humility and giving respect and serving others. Then what will happen? The first two things you have, but the third thing you don't do it. That means you are not humble and you are not giving respect to others. Then what naturally will happen? You will commit offenses to the devotees. So even though you have a bona fide seat, you are hearing also, but you are not humble. And that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains it very clearly. Trunadapi Sunichana, if you want to chant properly, the heart has to be humble. So then you will commit offenses to others and eventually you will not be successful. Now let's say if you have pure seed and then you are very humble also and you are giving respect to others, but you are not hearing proper Srimad Bhagavatam, then what's going to happen? So then what happens is like sometimes those people who are in the mode of goodness, naturally they behave nicely and they have some good qualities. But for bhakti you have to transcend even mode of goodness. And that is why in the goodness, the thing is you have bija and you have a good behavior, but proper hearing, watering is not there, then bhakti will not grow properly. And sometimes like you will see like somebody is watering, that means hearing it very nicely, and is also very humble and also very, very respectful to others, and still he will not get deep bhakti. Why? Because the seed is not proper. So for that Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is an example of Ramdas Vishwas. So what was his intention? His intention was to merge the Supreme Lord. He wanted to be one with the Supreme Lord. So he would chant the holy name of the Lord. And he was also very humble and rendering all kinds of services to the devotees as well. But the seed was defective. The seed was not for the pure bhakti. And that is why we have to understand that all these three things are very essential. And then we will be able to grow nicely in devotional service. So what we have to understand is, now let's see, this question is being asked by Parikshit Maharaj, who is a very, very exalted devotee of the Supreme Lord. It's not like he is new to the devotional service. And Parikshit Maharaj is faithful and he is thoughtful. Why he is thoughtful? Because you see kind of questions that he is asking to Sukadeva Goswami. And Sukadeva Goswami, after hearing his questions, becomes very enthusiastic to answer, because his questions were very, very appropriate and not only beneficial for Parikshit Maharaj, but beneficial for all of us. Because this dialogue that has been that happened on the bank of Ganges river is still available to us, and we also get benefited by hearing that. So he had faith in the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord, but still he was asking. So, what Srila Prabhupada has defined, that devotee is thoughtful, and those people who are not devotees, they are very speculative. And that's why you find like there are so many novels and so many things, and even for the devotional subject also, so many people write their own commentaries. But what one has to understand is, one has to understand the proper Siddhanta. The philosophy has to be properly understood. Otherwise, like person becomes a sentimental. Because we have to always have to understand Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. These things, three things are very essential. So after coming to Krishna consciousness, means after we start doing bhakti, we have to be very thoughtful in the sense how I can render better service. Now, many of you must have heard this term, independently thoughtful, which Srila Prabhupada wanted all his disciples to become independently thoughtful. So what does that mean? It means that we depend on what we have learned from Guru and from Krishna. So this is very important for us to understand. Independently thoughtful person means his knowledge is based on teachings of his Guru and teachings of his Krishna. So it's not like independently thoughtful means we keep on asking so many things, or whatever is the opinion of the Shastras, whatever is the opinion of our spiritual master, and we keep on arguing with them. Because if you know the teachings of your own spiritual master, then you understand that one has to be subordinate always to the spiritual master. At the same time, we can put our opinion, but eventually we always should follow the opinion of the senior person. So if you see Pandavas, it's not like everybody blindly followed Yudhishthira Maharaj. The Bhima had his opinion and he was quite vocal to make his point. Draupadi also had her opinion. Arjuna also would be having their own opinion. But in the end, they would follow what Yudhishthira Maharaj says. So they were independently thoughtful, but they were thoughtfully dependent also on the senior person. So this is very important for to understand. Then Prahlad Maharaj case. He was independently thoughtful means that whenever Skanda, Amarka, his so-called teachers of material education, they would say something, but he gave importance to his real spiritual master, Narad Muni. And he would always answer according to the teachings of Narad Muni and not what the Skanda and Amarka said. So independent thoughtful means depending upon what one has learned from Guru and Krishna. So we always use this so how we can serve better and eventually follow the will of our spiritual master. So now, in one sense, Parikshit Maharaj knew what is the answer. But he still has some doubt in the sense he wanted to hear from the mouth of Sukadeva Goswami. So the thing is, so even though Parikshit Maharaj knew, he asking the question as if is doubtful, and then Sukadeva Goswami Maharaj speaks about it. So why does the devotee ask such kinds of questions to their senior authorities? So that once they start speaking Bhagavad Katha, one is able to relish this Srimad Bhagavatam. So when we hear, we just don't hear to know the facts. And we hear about the relishing the pastimes. Now we read, let's say, any novel. So what happens is, there is some new information is available in mundane books, and we read that. But then what happens is, in the spiritual literature, when we are reading the spiritual literature, when we are relishing the text, we are developing relationship with the Supreme Lord. Now all the stories that we will be reading in Srimad Bhagavatam, we will develop our relationship with the Supreme Lord, and then our knowledge about the Supreme Lord will increase. And then it's always told us, like, now how you read Srimad Bhagavatam. We should read Srimad Bhagavatam in prayerful mood. Like, some people are very intelligent, very brilliant. Once they read, they remember everything, and they are able to repeat it also nicely. But the point is, if you have a prayerful heart while reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna will reciprocate you accordingly. So this is what, like, now Sukadeva Goswami is speaking, Parikshit Maharaj is hearing, but he is hearing with the faith, and he is relishing that katha, and he is developing more faith with the Supreme Lord, and Supreme Lord is also reciprocating to Maharaj Parikshit. And that's why we have seen, like, about a couple of years back, we had been to Jagannath Puri. And Jagannath Puri, there is a temple of Tota Gopinath. And that courtyard of Tota Gopinath, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Gadadhar Pandit, who would narrate Srimad Bhagavatam. Now Gadadhar Pandit is Srimati Radharani herself, and she is speaking about glories of Lord and glories of devotees. So she would speak, and they would hear the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj, pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj hundreds of times. But there were emotions involved. And that's why, like, while reading Srimad Bhagavatam, both of them would weep. When Srinivas Acharya went to Jagannath Puri, and then he wanted the copy of Srimad Bhagavatam, and then Gadadhar Pandit gave Srimad Bhagavatam copy to him, but he told him, look, all these copies have been, the ink has been wiped out because of our tears. So whatever you can read, but better you will have to get another copy for yourselves. So this is how, what we have to understand, that when Parikshit Maharaj is asking questions, Sukadeva Goswami is very happily narrating the incidences, and he is relishing the Krishna Katha, because the heart of Parikshit Maharaj is very prayerful, and that's why the Krishna is reciprocating it. We have seen that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was visiting South India, there was a Brahmin, and he was illiterate. Actually, it's quite unusual, the Brahmana, but he can't read it. But that was the case. He was not learned it, and he was not able to read. But his spiritual master ordered him that you should be reading Srimad Bhagavad Gita every day. So he would keep the Bhagavad Gita and try to read the words. But he had such a faith in the spiritual master, though he was not able to read any letters, but he was able to relish the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and the tears would come from his eyes. And of all, there were so many Brahmanas were there, and they were doing all kinds of other rituals and other parts. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically went to him and wanted to understand that how you are relishing reading of Bhagavad Gita. Now we also read Srimad Bhagavatam, we also read Srimad Bhagavad Gita. But then what happens is, if we read it with prayerful heart, then Krishna will definitely reciprocate. And that point always we have to understand. Now let's coming back to the point of whether Krishna is partial or not partial. So for the thing is, another verse explains that why can't Lord be partial? Lord can never be partial because who can be partial? Let's say as per our experience. For our experience, like we have two kinds of relationship. We have friends and we have enemies. Why we have friends? Friends helps us and they give maybe money to us, or they help us out in our difficulties, and enemies will increase our trouble. So usually we have two sets of people. Unfortunately, even coming in devotional service also, we maintain these two categories. So why? Because from one we benefit and another we are distressed. And because we are affected by these things, so we are also very partial with the people. But then the Supreme Lord, He is not affected by any praise or any criticism. Because we have a limited capacity. If somebody gives us a lot of money, we become happy. Because already we don't have that much money. And then somebody can really give us a trouble. But as far as Krishna is concerned, in the Srimad Bhagavatam 5th canto, it is explained that the Brahmanas were offering prayers when the sacrifice of Maharaj Nabhi was going on. The opulence of the Supreme Lord is unseemingly increasing. And that's why we hear that Ananta Shesh is describing the qualities of the Supreme Lord, and they are increasing. So how the Supreme Lord will get affected by any of the praise or any of the difficulties that we have to gain? So now what happens is, Parikshit Maharaj is asking in very clear terms that kindly dispel my doubts. So why this is very essential? Because the doubts are considered like a demons. Because if you don't ask your doubts, the doubts will fill your mind, it will fill your heart. And usually the demons are always expanding. So this is how the doubts will also expand, and it will completely destroy our faith. So whenever anyone has got any doubt about any topic, he should immediately go to the competent person and get it rectified it. Otherwise that doubt will sit in the heart and eventually dry up our process of bhakti. And that is why it's always appreciated when the disciples submissively inquires, the spiritual master becomes happy to answer his questions. And now Sukadeva Goswami starts speaking, and he first gives the philosophical answer, and that's the verse which we read it in the beginning of the lecture. So what was that? That Sadhu Prishtam Maharaja, that means, O great king, that this is an excellent inquiry. Because in reply to that, I will talk about the wonderful activities of the Supreme Lord and reveal the glories of devotees of the Lord. Because when you talk the Supreme Lord, naturally you will talk about devotees, and when you talk about devotees, you will talk about Supreme Lord also. And by hearing this, it increases the devotion to the Supreme Lord. So Bhagavan is discussed, Bhagavatam, the Bhaktas are discussed, and Bhakti is discussed. So by answering, I will get an opportunity to talk about the Bhagavan, I will be talking about the Bhagavatas, and then I will be talking about the Bhaktis. And all those things are very essential. So what we have to understand is, so all three things are there, you have to hear, and Bhakti means performance of devotional service. So we are not so advanced at this stage where we can just keep on chanting whole day and hearing it. Quality of consciousness doesn't remain good. So what we need is, for advancement, we need eternal service also. So there is a balance between chanting, hearing and rendering of the service. These three things has to go. And then as we are discussing, so then Sukadeva Goswami gives some description of the different modes of nature. So it's like, the question is about why Supreme Lord is favoring the demigods. So actually the time is influencing the three modes. Like three modes are goodness, passion and ignorance. They on their own cannot increase or decrease. But the influence of time, it increases and decreases. So when Sattva Guna is more, automatically demigods will flourish and demons will go down. When the Rajasa is there, then the demons will flourish and demigods will be suppressed. So from common point of view, it appears favoritism, but when the Sattva Guna is not prominent, demigods also don't flourish. Like see, when Indra offends the Durvas Muni, in 8th canto we have that story when Indra was going, he meets Durvas Muni gives him garland, he doesn't respect that garland, and then Durvas Muni is offended. So then what happens? The mode of goodness depleted in the universes. And then Asuras become powerful and Asuras defeated the demigods. So what we have to see is how the Supreme Lord is favoring someone is by the actions. And then what happens is first we will see one of the characteristics of the demons. The demons are always envious. Now Prahlad Maharaj was also born in the family of demons, but he was not like any other demons. Shri Prabhupada writes it in 4th chapter of this thing, that unlike other asuras, Prahlad Maharaj was never envious of Vaishnavas, and even though he was born in the family of asuras, he was a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. And other demons were always envious. So we have to always understand that how we have to curb this influence of envy in our heart. Because no matter what we try, envy is always there in our heart, and at different times, different circumstances, it will increase. So one has to deal the feeling of enviousness in one's heart. The envy is very clearly defined, that when someone else progresses and whatever discomfort that happens in our own heart is nothing but the envy. So that's a very, very simple definition and very simple way to understand. That when somebody progresses, if you are not able to become joyful, that means there is an envy in our heart. So it's a very, very simple, and that envy is not like it's there from the children's also. At a small age it begins and it remains all throughout. And one has to take efforts to reduce that envy. So first is like we have to appreciate the mercy of the Supreme Lord, then we are able to understand that there is anartha like envy that is existing in my heart. And by Krishna's grace, like he gives us a mirror and which we can see envy in our heart. And then intellectually at least we have to understand that Supreme Lord does not like envy. And if Supreme Lord does not like envy, can we ourselves overcome the feeling of enviousness? Only with the help of Supreme Lord we will be able to conquer the enemy of envy. And for that we have to constantly chant and constantly pray. And whenever the impulse come of envy in the heart, we should never act on it and try to postpone it, and over a period of time we can get over it. So that's why we will see all the demons, they are always envious of the Supreme Lord, and envy pervades in all our life, and we have to take a concrete steps to overcome the envy. And then what happens is actually the Supreme Lord doesn't favor anyone. What he does is, as per that person's behavior, he just a reciprocal to that person. And even if it appears that Lord is partial to the demigods, it is transcendental, because Lord can become partial to the devotees and he can still remain impartial to all the universe, because he is the creator. So this is what happens. Then actually Yudhishthira Maharaj then asked this question, that now Shukdev Goswami is explaining to Parikshit Maharaj that what you have asked this question was asked by Yudhishthira Maharaj to Narad Muni. So most of the Bhagavatam you will see the speaker will always quote the previous examples and the previous discussions of the great acharyas. And that's how Shukdev Goswami is explaining about Yudhishthira Maharaj and Narad Samvad, in which Yudhishthira Maharaj also had the same questions. Now how that same question came up? So there was a Rajasuya sacrifice that was happening in the Yudhishthira Maharaj's kingdom, and in that Shishupal tried to obstruct it. He became envious and he completed his 100 offenses, and Krishna with Sudarshan Chakra cuts off his head. So in that assembly, Yudhishthira Maharaj sees the soul lives from the body of Shishupal and gets merged in the body of Krishna. So he gets a Sayujya Mukti. So this is what let Yudhishthira Maharaj get surprised, that how come the person who is so envious could get Sayujya Mukti. Because the characteristics of this Shishupal was such that when he was not even able to properly speak, he was blaspheming the Supreme Lord. He was criticizing the Krishna. So that was the envy was there in his heart. So, but one main thing what we have to understand is, Yudhishthira Maharaj, when he got this doubt that how come this has happened, that he was envious and got such an elevated position, he is asking the question to the competent authorities. He is not speculating on his own. And always we have to conclude everything on the basis of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, and not by our own experience. Because whatever discussion is happening about impartiality or partiality of the Supreme Lord, but actually Supreme Lord is just reciprocating to the acts of his devotees. And then what happens is, circumstances is such, the Rajasuya sacrifice was happening, and in that Shishupal was killed. Now you can see when you are performing any very auspicious activity and the killing is very inauspicious, and that has happened, but still it has not affected Yudhishthira Maharaj. Yudhishthira Maharaj is peacefully discussing Krishna Katha. Because Yudhishthira Maharaj was attached to Krishna and he was totally detached from the circumstances. So even if such a thing that happened, In the performance of Yajna, one person was killed. But still, Yudhishthira Maharaj was peaceful and asking these questions. Now, another important thing that we have to learn from here is that Krishna was present right in front of Yudhishthira Maharaj, but Yudhishthira Maharaj is asking this question to Narad Muni. So the thing is, what we learn from this is we should always approach a devotee with humble heart. And many times Krishna, instead of himself speaking, he lets the message pass through from his devotees. Now here he is educating Yudhishthira Maharaj to Narad Muni. Later we see he is educating Yudhishthira Maharaj through Bhishma Dev. So this is how Krishna will reciprocate, and he will glorify his own devotees, and he will relish his own katha being spoken by his unalloyed devotees. So as we see, like Shishupal was envious and still he got such a high position. And then formerly, Yudhishthira Maharaj said there was a king Vena who actually fell down to the hellish condition. He was also blaspheming the Supreme Lord. So you see, Shishupal was blaspheming, he got highest position. Vena was blaspheming, but he got demoted to the hellish planets. So how these two things has happened? So it is mentioned like Shishupal and Dantarvakra were repeatedly blaspheming the Supreme Lord. And then Yudhishthira Maharaj was surprised that how their tongue was not attracted by leprosy, and how they did not enter into darkest region of hell, because they are such a blasphemous person doing such a nonsense things. And how it is possible for a person who is such a blasphemous to enter into the body of the Supreme Lord so easily. So then Narad Muni started describing the glories of a person who is absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So then what happens is, like then the Narad Muni tells Yudhishthira Maharaj that please listen, that somehow or other we have to concentrate our mind on Krishna. So whether it's enmity, whether it's a hatredness, or by devotion, or by fear, or by affection, or by the lust, but one should focus one's mind on Lord Krishna. Because what happens is, it's like a fire, whether a child touches it or elderly person touches it, it will burn. So similarly, if somebody is thinking about Krishna, the purifying effect will always be there. So even if somebody is thinking unfavorably, but because he is thinking of Krishna, the sins will burn. So what is now you are thinking about Krishna, the emotions has to be involved. And that's why all these emotions are mentioned. Whether you have a fear, whether you have a devotion, whether you have affection, whether you have a lust. So all these things are nothing but emotions. And then when the emotions are involved, you become absorbed in that thing. So let's take an example, how to understand. Now, mother has got a lot of emotions to the child. Now you see that the child is sick if it's in hospital, and you will see the nurse will also come and serve the child. But the emotions of the nurse are different and the emotions of the mother are different. The emotions of the mother is always caring, and emotions of the nurse is involved up to the transactional level. So that's why it is said that the absorptions means emotion should be involved. So what gopis were having the emotions that they wanted Krishna as their lover. So that loving relations, emotions were available. And Krishna's parents, they had parental love emotions involved in that. So this is how, what we have to understand is, now coming back to the criticism of the Lord. Now criticism of the Lord, when it's unfavorable, if it is giving rise to the total absorption, then bad karma will be destroyed, and a person like Shishupal could get this destination. But if somebody is thinking unfavorable way, but it does not give rise to the absorptions, means he will just blaspheme, but there is no thinking of the Supreme Lord, then he will go to the hellish region as the king Vena has gone. So enmity must lead to the absorptions, and that's what we have to understand this. Now the Narad Muni sometimes, like he was saying, that I am also surprised that how these demons are able to think about the Supreme Lord in such a way. But the point is, Narad Muni is speaking as a humility, and what we have to understand is that bhakti has to be done with emotions, and that is why the Raganuga bhakti is done at a great emotions. And how we will reach the Raganuga bhakti? We have to perform Vaidhi bhakti. Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, if it is performed properly, then we will be able to reach up to Raganuga bhakti. And Narad Muni is indirectly glorifying the process of Raganuga bhakti. And then it's very clearly described that people who have attained Krishna in the various ways. So that verse says, like the gopis by the conjugal love got desire for the Krishna. Kamsa, he by the fear that Krishna will come and kill me. So he was constantly absorbed in thinking about the Krishna. Shishupal and other kings, because of their envy, they were affected because of that. Then Yadus, who were the family members of Krishna, so they were thinking that Krishna is our relative. So in that family relation, they were thinking about that. And Narad Muni talks about himself, we are thinking about Krishna by devotional service. So this is how the actual absorption was taking place. So this chapter actually talks about the nature of Lord Krishna, that if a person who is thinking unfavorably to Krishna can attain such a great destination, then what about the person who is thinking favorably, thinking with love and devotion, and giving his whole life for the service of Krishna? We can imagine what great elevated position Krishna will give it to him. And this is what we have to understand. That it's a great humility of Narad Muni. Though he is in such an elevated position, he is still glorifying the demons, that how they are able to absorb in the thoughts of Krishna. But actually lesson what we have to understand is that if we think favorably, then how much Krishna is going to reciprocate to us. So Maharaj Yudhishthira was asking that this is unbelievable, because then Narad Muni just starts explaining their previous lives, that what this actually, these are the Jai Vijay who are the doorkeepers of Vaikunta, and when 4 Kumaras came at the gate of Vaikunta, that time Jai Vijay considered them that they are the ordinary people, and that's how they stopped him going further. And then Kumaras were thinking that we have come to meet the Supreme Lord, we have great desire to see him, and who are these 2 people, gatekeepers, who are stopping us in this way? So that time what happens is they become angry, and then they curse him, curse the doorkeepers. Now what happens is how come like the person who is guarding the gates of Vaikunta, how they will fall down in this material world? So the Acharyas explain is that when Lord has a desire to fight, there is nobody he can fight with in the Vaikuntha planet, because Vaikuntha planet, everybody is serving him with love and devotion. So Lord desire to fight remains unfulfilled in the spiritual world. And then when Lord wants to fight, unless Lord empowers somebody to fight with him, who can fight with the Supreme Lord? And that is why this pastime is enacted, where Jai Vijay falls down onto these things, 3 births. So the first birth is described like they came as the sons of Diti, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyanaksha. And then Supreme Lord came as Narshimha Dev and Varaha and destroyed them. Second birth they appeared as Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and that time Lord Ramchandra killed them. In their third birth they came as a Shishupal and Dantavakra, and that time Krishna with the Sudarshan Chakra kills them. So after taking 3 births, they become free from the curse and goes back to normal. Now what happens is, what we see, that when these Kumaras were coming, they had that feeling of entitlement that we can go and see the Supreme Lord. But actually nobody can see the Supreme Lord with this kind of mentality. If you are going to see the Supreme Lord, even if you want to see your own father, but you have to inquire whether he is available, whether he is free at this time, and can we meet. So naturally any person will ask, like, no, we want to meet the Supreme Lord, can I meet him? But they were not going in that bhava. They were just simply going in the entitlement, we want to go in Supreme Lord and he should give us his darshan. So naturally Jai Vijay were thinking that they are not in that proper consciousness, so they were stopped. Now Acharyas explain that their stopping was justified, but the way they stopped it was not justified. So they were not gentle in stopping them from entering the Vaikuntha planet. And then what happens, Lord comes, himself comes at that place, and then he glorifies Kumaras, and then he pacifies them. And then what happens is, that's a time a great transformation happens in the heart of Kumaras. When Kumaras smell the tulsi offered to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, their heart transforms to the devotional service. So what was happening is, forcefully they were trying to enter Vaikuntha planets, and Krishna forcefully entered through their nostrils and gave them the proper understanding about devotional service of the Supreme Lord. And that's how the transformation took place. So what we learn is like, even if you make a little bit endeavors, then Krishna will definitely reciprocate it accordingly. So here we have seen, like now we'll be reading Srimad Bhagavatam and further chapters, that Hiranyakashipu, the kind of tapasya he does, is like Lord Brahma himself says that nobody can do such kind of tapasya. Now, to get the position of Lord Brahma, you have to have so much of pious credits and so many things that you do, then only you can reach to the position of Brahma. Now Brahma is describing to the Hiranyakashipu that you have done tapasya, I have not seen anyone in the past have done, nor I think in future anybody will be able to do that tapasya. So he does that tapasya, he gets that all benedictions. And that's the time Prahlad Maharaj was, when Hiranyakashipu was performing tapasya, Prahlad Maharaj was in the womb of his mother. And then when Prahlad Maharaj was a little child, maybe 5 years of old age, that's the time Narsimha Bhagwan appears. So how long his kingdom lasted? It is described like so many years he did tapasya. His tapasya was such that his whole body was eaten by the insects. And he could just retain his prana with the bones only. Brahmaji glorifies his these things. And then when he became the king, he started occupying the kingdom of Indra. He would sit on the throne of Indra. And he ordered the demigod just like we order the servants in our home. So that's what was the position in the assembly of Hiranyakashipu about the demigods. Demigods were just like menial servant and everybody had to honor him. But how many years he could enjoy? Just 5 years. So what was the use of like making so much of endeavor, and then next life everything becomes zero. So this is what happens about the progress of material life, that if you do progress, no matter how much achievement you make, the description given about Hiranyakashipu is that he was never satisfied. His eyes were always red because he was always intoxicated. And then with a slight pretext he would become angry. First of all, there is a lot of false ego, then he is drunkard, and then he becomes angry. Then you could see the position of the kingdom. And then Prahlad Maharaj, with his devotion, what he learned in mother's womb through Narad Muni, he just practiced it fearlessly. And then Supreme Lord manifested from a pillar to protect him. So what we can say is the nature of the Supreme Lord is so reciprocal that as soon as you render a little service to him, the Supreme Lord is described as the ocean of mercy. So we call him as a Karuna Sagar. He is like a Din Bandhu. And he will always reciprocate without fail to his devotee. So here we discussed about like remembering Krishna, discussed about absorption in Krishna. So whether even if some people comes up was thinking unfavorable way, and we saw other devotees, they were thinking about favorable way. But Lord never forgets even if a little service is done by any person. Lord will always reciprocate, and Lord will always see to it that that person is rewarded and is helped. And when we hear this kinds of stories how Lord reciprocates, we remember like there was some people in one family. He was staying in Calcutta, and they had sponsored the deities of Vrindavan temple for Shri Prabhupada. And then family was very pious and very devoted, and they were staying, they were not so actively on this thing. And many years later, when that old lady who had donated for the Vrindavan deities, she was about to leave her body, and the news came to the Calcutta temple devotees, and from that family this request came like she is on the verge of leaving, so can you send a photo of a deities to her. So now when this message came, now it's a temple in Calcutta. So usually in that temple deities photos are available. But somehow other, when the devotees searched that day, not a single photo of their deity was available, but the photo of Vrindavan temple was available, which she had donated. And then what happens is devotees took that photo and gave it to her, and looking at that photo, she departed. So the devotional service she rendered many years back, she wasn't so in touch with the devotees. But when Krishna arranged it in such a way that when she was living, he was present right in that form to her to give the darshan. So this is the nature of Lord Krishna, that whatever service one does, Krishna never forgets, and he will reciprocate it accordingly. So here he says whether the Lord is partial or impartial, but the main thing is, what we have to understand is, Lord is very merciful and is reciprocal, and whoever does service, Lord will reciprocate. So even though Prahlad Maharaj is born in Asura family, but he was devoted to the Supreme Lord. Bali Maharaj, though he was born in Asura family, he surrenders to the Supreme Lord, and Krishna reciprocates accordingly. And he will reciprocate beyond anybody's imagination. So this is how next few days we will be always talking about Lord Narsimha's Leela in detail. So we'll end here today. Hare Krishna.